What happens when your neighbor cuts down your trees worth $200,000? The letter waiting in my mailbox after returning from vacation should have been from the postal service or utility company, but instead, it contained an offer that made my blood boil and my lawyer's eyes light up with dollar signs. My aspiring country singer neighbor had taken it upon himself to cut down 2 century-old oak trees from my property while I was away, and apparently thought $2,000 would cover the cost of his unauthorized landscaping project. Living in a small Tennessee town outside Nashville, I'd grown accustomed to new residents who brought big city attitudes and even bigger bank accounts. My neighbor, who I'll call Johnny, had built an elaborate front porch complete with fireplace and hanging lights, creating the perfect setting for his musical aspirations. The only problem was that my 2 massive oak trees cast his deck in shade during prime entertaining hours, blocking his vision of becoming the next country music sensation. Johnny had approached me before about removing the trees, even offering to pay for the work, but I'd declined. These weren't ordinary trees. They were ancient white oaks that had been growing for over a century, predating most of the neighborhood development, but apparently my refusal hadn't deterred him from pursuing his own solution while I was conveniently out of town for a week. The devastation was immediately obvious when I pulled into my driveway, where 2 majestic trees had once provided shade and character to my front yard. Only stumps remained, surrounded by churned up grass and chainsaw debris. The letter Johnny had left explained that he'd taken the liberty of solving our mutual problem and would be sending me $2,000 via Venmo to cover any inconvenience. The audacity was breathtaking, but the legal implications were even more significant. Tennessee has particularly strict tree laws that provide substantial penalties for unauthorized removal of trees from someone else's property. The statute allows for double or triple damages, which meant Johnny's Saturday morning landscaping project was about to become a very expensive mistake. My Nashville lawyer was practically salivating when I described the situation during our consultation. He immediately quoted the relevant Tennessee code about trespassing and tree damage, explaining that white oak trees of this age and size could be worth astronomical amounts due to their irreplaceable nature and the difficulty of growing them in urban environments. He advised waiting for a surveyor to confirm the trees were on my property before filing criminal charges. The surveyor's visit provided the most satisfying moment of the entire ordeal. While he was taking measurements and making observations, Johnny emerged from his house to ask when I'd be accepting his payment. When I explained that I wasn't ready to accept anything yet, he became aggressive, insisting that he'd had the right to cut down trees that were shading his property and calling me a terrible neighbor for not helping improve his home value. The surveyor's response was immediate and devastating. The stumps were clearly on my property, not Johnny's. While he could have trimmed branches that extended over his property line, cutting down entire trees from my yard was absolutely illegal. Johnny's face went through several color changes as the reality of his mistake became clear, and he stormed back into his house without another word. The certified arborist's evaluation a week later was an education in the complex world of tree valuation that I'd never considered. These weren't just large trees, they were century-old white oaks with veneer-quality lumber, the kind used for high-end furniture and musical instruments. Their root systems made them nearly impossible to grow in developed neighborhoods, and their age made them completely irreplaceable. $1,000 per year per tree is base compensation, the arborist explained, meaning my 200-year-old trees were worth approximately $200,000 combined. The number was staggering, transforming Johnny's weekend landscaping project into what would likely be the most expensive shade removal in Tennessee history. The legal proceedings moved quickly once we had professional valuations and confirmed property boundaries. Johnny's daddy in Los Angeles, apparently the source of his unlimited confidence and limited judgment, ended up paying the settlement to avoid a protracted court battle that would have been even more expensive. The final settlement of $190,000 was life-changing money that arrived as a direct consequence of Johnny's arrogance and poor planning. The landscaping company that had actually done the cutting proved to be judgment-proof, with no assets worth pursuing. They'd apparently taken Johnny's word that he owned the trees without doing their own due diligence about property lines or permits. Their carelessness cost them nothing, while Johnny's assumption that money could fix any problem cost him nearly $200,000. A year later, I had new oak saplings growing where the ancient trees had been, though they'll need a century to approach the size and value of what Johnny destroyed in a single morning. The settlement money had been invested wisely, providing financial security that far exceeded what those trees had provided in shade and aesthetic value. Some people believe that having money gives them the right to make unilateral decisions about other people's property. Johnny learned the expensive lesson that property rights exist for a reason, and that destroying something irreplaceable carries consequences that go far beyond the cost of replacement. His aspiring country music career had collided with century-old tree law, and the trees won decisively. The case became a local legend, whispered about whenever new residents considered taking liberties with their neighbor's landscaping. Sometimes justice comes in the form of an arborist with a calculator, and sometimes the most expensive mistake you can make involves a chainsaw and someone else's century-old oak trees.